Welcome to Threads of Truth, where real-life mysteries meet internet speculation.
Today we're going to walk through a case it's just incredibly baffling and heartbreaking. It's the disappearance of Jodi Huisentruit.
Right, Jodi Huisentruit, the young news anchor from Iowa, vanished, nearly 30 years ago now? June 1995?
Exactly. June 27th, 1995. She was the morning anchor at KMT in Mason City. Ambitious, really popular, only 27 years old.
And the circumstances are just chilling. It's that eerie, quiet, pre-dawn Iowa morning setting. She overslept, got a call.
Yeah, from her producer, Amy Kunz. Jodi answered, said, "Yep, overslept. I'm on my way right now, around 4 a.m.
And then nothing. She never arrived at the station. That short walk from her apartment door to her car is where everything just stops.
It vanishes into thin air. And what makes this case really grab you, besides the obvious tragedy, is the background noise.
What?
The sense of unease before it happened.
You mean what she told her friends?
Exactly. Our sources consistently show she had expressed feeling followed, feeling watched in the weeks, maybe months leading up to it. That's not something you just ignore.
No, absolutely not. It changes the whole dynamic, doesn't it? From maybe a random, terrible event to something potentially targeted.
Precisely. That pre-disappearance anxiety, it's essential context. It sets the stage for what was found at the scene, the people who came under scrutiny, and frankly, why this case still generates so much discussion and even legal action today.
Okay, so let's really get into the details. Let's unpack the evidence and the timeline. So first, let's paint a picture of Jodi. She wasn't just an anchor, she was the morning anchor in Mason City, right? Anchoring the 6 a.m. daybreak show.
Yeah, she was the face people woke up to. Originally from Minnesota, Long Prairie, born in '68, she'd worked her way up. Anchoring that early show is demanding.
Means being at the station incredibly early, like before 4:30 a.m. most days, 6 days a week.
That's the routine. And in a place like Mason City, which isn't huge, that routine makes you very visible. People know who you are, they know your schedule.
Which can be a double-edged sword, that visibility.
It definitely increases vulnerability.
Yeah.
Especially that isolated early morning departure from her apartment. Anyone watching would know exactly when she'd be leaving alone in the dark.
And June 27th, that routine was broken, but then tragically adhered to. She overslept.
Which is relatable, happens to everyone.
Yeah.
But that call from Amy Kunz at KMT right around 4 a.m., that becomes the anchor point.
The last confirmed contact.
Absolutely. Jodi picks up. She's likely flustered, says, "I'm leaving right now." That's the last known moment she's alive and accounted for. It means whatever happened, happened fast, within minutes of her hanging up that phone.
So fast forward a few hours. She doesn't show up. People at the station are worried. They call the police around 7 a.m. What do the police find?
They found her car, that distinctive red Mazda Miata, 91, I believe, still in the parking lot of her apartment complex. But it wasn't just the car sitting there.
It was what was around the car.
Exactly. It screamed struggle, immediate violent confrontation, right there by the driver's side door. The items scattered on the ground. They tell a story.
Things she'd need for work, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned her red high heels.
Red high heels, hairspray, a hairdryer, even earrings, I think. Things she was likely juggling, tried to get into the car, probably stressed about being late.
It paints a picture of someone rushing, maybe slightly distracted.
Completely. And then ambushed. These weren't items carefully placed. They were dropped, likely ripped from her grasp during the struggle. It's heartbreakingly vivid.
But the detail that always stands out, the one that signifies the violence most starkly, is the car key.
Oh, absolutely. The car key. Found bent. Physically bent. Still in the driver's side door lock.
Bent in the lock. How does that even happen?
Think about the force required. It suggests the attack happened at that exact moment. As she was inserting or turning the key, it stops her getting in the car. Maybe the door itself was used against her. It just blows any theory of her leaving willingly or being calmly coerced out of the water. This was an ambush, pure and simple.
And there was more physical evidence suggesting she was taken away, wasn't there? Not just attacked at the car.
Yes. Reports mentioned apparent drag marks near the Miata, consistent with someone being forcefully removed from that spot.
Okay. And fingerprints, palm prints.
They did recover an unidentified palm print from a nearby pole in the parking lot. Now, 1995 forensics, It wasn't what it is today, obviously. But they got that print. It confirmed someone else was there, physically interacting with the environment during the crime. That print has just been hanging out there unidentified for decades.
Wow. Okay, so physical evidence points to a violent abduction right by her car. What about witnesses? Did anyone see or hear anything in that critical window, say 4:00 to 4:30 a.m.?
That's where it gets frustratingly vague, but also tantalizing. Some neighbors did report hearing screams.
Screams around that time.
Yeah, somewhere between 4 and 8 and 4:30 a.m., which lines up perfectly with when Jodi would have been leaving after that phone call. Now, screams in the night, hard to be certain, but combined with the scene, it's highly probable it was her.
And the white van.
Ah, yes, the infamous white van. A nearby neighbor reported seeing a suspicious white Ford Econoline van just idling in the parking lot around the same time the screams were supposedly heard.
Ford Econoline, that's pretty specific, but also a very common van.
Exactly, and that's the problem. Despite, extensive efforts, this van was never tracked down, never positively identified, never definitively linked. It just floats there as this potential clue that leads nowhere, a real phantom vehicle.
And just to confirm, inside her apartment, everything was normal. No signs of a break-in or struggle there.
Correct. Police confirmed no forced entry, nothing disturbed inside. The entire event seems confined to that vulnerable space between her apartment door and her car. That short, fatal journey.
Okay, so let's recap. We have a violent abduction, clear signs of a struggle, drag mark, a bent key, an unidentified palm print, possible screams heard, a mysterious van, and Jodi's own prior statements about feeling watched.
All pointing heavily towards a targeted attack, not a random crime of opportunity.
Which naturally shifts the focus onto people who knew her routine, or maybe harbored some kind of obsession.
Right. Investigators typically look at two main profiles in a case like this.
Yeah.
The unknown serial predator who might have fixated on her, or, often more likely, someone within her social or professional circle. An acquaintance, a friend, maybe a spurned admirer.
And in Jodi's case, one name has consistently drawn the most attention over the years. John Van Cise.
John Van Cise, yes. He was significantly older than Jodi, maybe 20 years or so. A well-known guy in Mason City. He presented himself as a friend, almost a mentor figure to her.
And their connection was recent, right? Like immediately before she disappeared.
Extremely recent.
Yeah.
He was actually the last known person outside of her work colleagues to see her alive. She had been at his house the night before she vanished.
Doing what?
Watching a videotape. He had helped throw a surprise birthday party for her earlier that month, and they were watching the tape he made of it.
So she was with him just hours before the abduction. That's significant.
It's undeniably significant. It places him directly in her timeline right before the end, and his actions afterwards, well, they raised eyebrows.
Like moving away.
He did move away from Mason City, not too long after the initial intense phase of the investigation, and he was questioned multiple times, of course. He remained a figure of intense interest for law enforcement.
And that interest didn't fade, did it? There was a major development much more recently.
That's right. Fast forward over 2 decades to March 2017. Investigators executed a search warrant, a very specific one.
What were they searching for in 2017 related to a 1995 crime? That sounds like a long shot.
It sounds like it, but they were leveraging modern technology. The warrant was specifically to get GPS data related to 2 vehicles associated with him.
GPS data from 1995. Cars didn't have GPS like that back then.
No, not integrated like today. But the warrant could have been looking for data from associated devices, maybe later phones, or even GPS data from newer vehicles he owned after 1995. The idea might have been to see if he returned to certain locations, or if any digital footprint, however faint, could link his movements, even retroactively, to areas of interest around the time she disappeared, or perhaps near a potential disposal site. It was a long shot, but using tech to try and bridge that gap.
Okay, so they got this warrant, presumably evidence data, but we don't know what it showed.
We don't. The results of that warrant, the data itself, remain sealed by the court. Which brings us to the absolute latest, really crucial development.
John Van Cise died.
He died in December 2024. And legally, that changes things significantly.
How so?
Well, the Fourth Amendment right to privacy, which protects individuals from unreasonable searches and seizures and keeps records like that sealed, primarily belongs to the living person. Once someone is deceased, those privacy rights are greatly diminished or essentially extinguished.
So the argument to keep that 2017 GPS data secret is much weaker now.
Much weaker. The legal battleground shifts, It's no longer about protecting Van Cise's personal privacy against the state's investigation. Now it's about the public interest in potentially solving a 30-year-old abduction versus maintaining the seal for other reasons, perhaps ongoing investigation integrity, but the main constitutional barrier is gone.
So there's a real push now to get that warrant unsealed.
An intense push. If those records are released, that GPS data could be the biggest breakthrough in this case in decades. It might show something incriminating, it might show nothing, but finding out is critical. It's probably the most important active front in the investigation right now.
Okay, Van Cise is the major acquaintance theory figure. But there was another person of interest early on, linked to a different kind of theory, right? Tony Jackson.
Tony Jackson, yes. This fits the serial predator profile. Jackson was a convicted serial rapist. And the chilling part, his proximity.
How close was he?
He was living just 2 blocks away from the Kimotee TV station where Jodi worked when she disappeared. 2 blocks.
Wow, that's incredibly close. So the theory was he saw her, maybe stalked her because of her visibility and routine.
That was the angle. You have a known violent offender living practically next door to a prominent local personality with a very predictable, vulnerable schedule. It's an obvious line of inquiry.
But doesn't the police rule him out?
Officially, yes. In 1999, the Mason City PD issued a public statement saying Jackson was not considered a viable suspect. They cited a lack of forensic evidence connecting him to the crime scene.
Okay, but 1999 forensics again. We talked about this. How reliable is a lack of evidence finding from that era, especially with someone like Jackson nearby?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Does a lack of evidence using 1999 techniques really mean he wasn't involved? Or does it just mean the technology wasn't good enough to find it? Touch DNA, mitochondrial DNA analysis. None of that was really available or routine back then.
So despite the official statement, some people still think he should be considered.
Absolutely. Many amateur investigators and people following the case argue that the sudden, violent, seemingly opportunistic nature of the abduction fits Jackson's profile perfectly. They believe his proximity alone makes him a strong candidate, and that the forensic side should be revisited with today's technology if any testable evidence still exists.
It's tough when you have an official dismissal versus such compelling circumstantial factors like proximity and MO.
It really is. It leaves that door perpetually slightly ajar in the minds of many.
Beyond these two main individuals, Van Cise and Jackson, were there other theories about motive? You mentioned potential obsession.
Yes, and this ties back into the idea of a targeted emotional crime rather than random predation. There's the new boyfriend theory.
Okay, what's that?
This theory, often pushed by private investigators who worked on the case later, suggests that Jodi had started a significant new relationship maybe 10 days or so before she was abducted.
A new boyfriend just before she disappeared.
Potentially. And if true, think about the implications. A new serious relationship could absolutely trigger jealousy, rage, a confrontation.
From a former partner. Or maybe someone who wanted to be her partner.
Exactly. Someone feeling scorned or replaced. It provides a powerful, immediate motive for that kind of violent ambush we saw evidence of in the parking lot. It wouldn't be a random grab. It would be a direct, emotionally charged confrontation that boiled over instantly.
So that theory points towards someone specific targeting Jodi out of anger or jealousy, rather than an opportunistic predator like Jackson, or even necessarily the more complex relationship dynamic suggested with Van Cise.
Right. It frames the crime around intense, immediate emotion. It's another lens to view the known facts through, and it highlights just how many possibilities remain open in this case. #Tag3, internet speculation, and ongoing modern investigation.
The fact that we're still discussing these different theories, Van Cise, Jackson, a possible jealous ex, nearly 30 years later speaks volumes about the lack of closure.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
And Jodi's case, maybe because she was a media figure herself, has become this enduring symbol. It represents that darker side of visibility of minor fame.
Where being known, being accessible can attract not just fans, but danger, obsession.
Precisely. Her public persona, her job, put her out there, but her private life, leaving her apartment at 4 a.m., that's where the vulnerability was. And that mix fuels endless online fascination and speculation.
And the internet has really kept this case alive in the public eye, hasn't it?
Oh, massively. It's the engine now. You have dedicated groups like FindJodi.com, which has been active for years, doing incredible work, consolidating information and advocating. And there are Huge Facebook groups, Reddit threads.
Acting almost like crowdsourced investigations.
In a way, yes. They are massive archives of information, timelines, theories. But they're also breeding grounds for speculation, sometimes recycling theories the police might feel they've already debunked, like the Jackson connection we discussed.
It's that double-edged sword again, isn't it? Keeping the pressure on, generating tips, but also potentially muddying the waters with theories that might not hold up.
That's the constant tension. You also see persistent, though usually unsubstantiated theories pop up in these forums, like the idea of a cover-up.
A cover-up, meaning what?
Usually it stems from frustration, the idea that maybe the perpetrator was someone influential locally and that the initial investigation was somehow hampered or steered away from them, local corruption or protecting one of their own.
Is there any actual evidence for that?
No official evidence has ever emerged to support a cover-up. But it's a narrative that understandably arises when a case goes cold for so long, especially when it involves a prominent victim. It speaks to the community's deep desire for answers and, perhaps, a distrust that everything possible was done early on.
But all this attention, this online activity, it does serve a purpose in keeping the official investigation alive, right?
Critically important. Jodi was declared legally dead back in May 2001. That allows for settling estates and things like that. But crucially, the Mason City Police Department has always maintained this is an active investigation. It's not officially a cold case gathering dust on a shelf.
And that active status means resources can still be allocated.
Yes. It allows them to pursue new leads, apply new technologies, justify spending time and money on it, which is vital.
And there have been recent financial incentives, too, focusing on a very specific outcome.
That's right. In 2023, a private investigator involved with the case put up a $25,000 reward. But the wording was specific. It was for information leading directly to the recovery of Jodi's body.
Shifting the focus from who did it to where is she?
It's a pragmatic shift, sadly. After almost 3 decades, finding her remains offers the best chance for definitive closure for her family, and potentially forensic evidence from the recovery site could still point back to the killer. Finding her is the priority.
And tips do still come in, leading to actual searches.
They do, even as recently as late 2024. Information led investigators to search a wooded area back in Minnesota in Winsted, which is Jodi's home state.
Why that specific site?
The tip suggested it, and importantly, the site was apparently scheduled for development. That often creates urgency in cold cases search now, before the landscape changes forever and potential evidence is destroyed or buried deeper.
Did anything come of that search?
Nothing major was announced publicly. But the fact that searches like that are still happening based on new information shows the case is far from dormant. They are still actively chasing leads.
And circling back, that potential unsealing of the John Vancey's search warrant, that feels like the most concrete potential development on the horizon.
It really does. It's where technology meets the legal process head on. His death removed the primary shield protecting that 2017 GPS data. If the courts release it, well, it could either finally solidify him as the prime suspect, definitively rule him out, or perhaps provide clues pointing elsewhere. It's a huge potential turning point. #Tag4. Analysis on the road ahead.
Looking at the bigger picture, Jodi's case really forces you to think about the risks inherent in certain professions, especially public-facing ones in smaller communities.
Absolutely. That line between being a recognizable, trusted public figure and just a person trying to live their life gets incredibly blurred. Her job required visibility, but her schedule, that early morning routine, created profound vulnerability.
It's a chilling thought. The very thing that made her successful also put her at risk, a higher risk than the average person in Mason City.
Unquestionably. And it's why, even after all this time, the hope for solving this case often rests on scientific advancements. Forensics.
Because the initial investigation, despite best efforts, hit roadblocks.
Right. But the evidence collected back then, if preserved properly, and the Mason City PD has stressed its commitment to this, could yield answers today that were impossible in 1995.
So what are the big hopes on the forensic front? What technology could realistically break this case open?
Well, number one is always DNA. Any biological material recovered back then trace evidence under her fingernails if she fought back, maybe skin cells on her shoes, the hair dryer, fibers from the attacker's clothing on her.
Stuff that might have been too small to test effectively in 95.
Exactly. Touch DNA analysis, mitochondrial DNA testing. The sensitivity is exponentially greater now. You could potentially get a profile from incredibly minute samples. Retesting those original items, assuming they were preserved correctly, is probably the single biggest forensic hope.
And the palm print, the one on the pole.
That's number two. Latent print technology and the databases, like AFIS, are vastly more powerful today. A print that was unidentifiable then might get a hit now. It's a direct link to someone present at the scene during the critical time.
So it's a combination of reanalyzing old physical evidence with new DNA tech and rerunning things like the palm print through modern databases.
Plus, potentially, that advanced sees GPS data. It's a multi-pronged approach where technology offers the best chance to finally connect the dots.
We touched on the cover-up theories fueled by frustration. It does seem like the lack of answers for so long inevitably leads people to question the initial response, doesn't it?
It's almost a natural human response to an unbearable mystery. When the who and why remain unknown for decades, people look for reasons why it's unknown. Was it incompetence? Or something more sinister, like protection or influence? It provides a narrative, however unfounded, to explain the void. It helps make sense of the senselessness, in a way.
In Jodi's case, her story, it had an impact beyond just the investigation itself, didn't it, within the news industry?
Yes, definitely. Her disappearance was a major wake-up call, particularly for local news stations. The security of on-air talent, especially those working unusual hours like early morning anchors, became a much bigger priority.
So protocols likely changed. Things like secure parking, maybe escorts, check-in procedures.
You saw a lot more attention paid to those things. News organizations had to confront the reality that visibility equals risk. Her case tragically highlighted the need for better safety measures for journalists just doing their jobs. In a sad way, her legacy includes improved safety for others who came after her.
It's a painful context, but an important one. A talented journalist, career cut short, whose unresolved story continues to echo not just in the search for her, but in the practices of the profession she loved.
And that search for her, for answers, it really hinges now on that one elusive piece, a DNA match, a confirmed print, a revealing data point from that warrant, maybe even a deathbed confession someday. But the persistence is there. Find Jodi.com, the investigators, the public. The hope remains that technology or time will finally unlock the truth.
The Vanishing Anchor. It's a story that still haunts Iowa, and indeed anyone who hears it. A truly confounding case. Next time on Threads of Truth, we follow another haunting case, the disappearance of Tiffany Daniels, a free-spirited artist who left work one afternoon and drove into the unknown, leaving behind only questions